Okay, so let's move on to the second use case. And to me, this is the most interesting one. Diagnosing your major bottleneck or your major or most probable cause for rejection.
Okay.
What do you think of this one?
Here, I think there's a lot of value. So the way I see diagnosing your bottleneck, it varies depending on the bottleneck, and the bottleneck varies depending on what stage you are. When you're just starting out, your bottleneck's gonna be very clear to you.
Yeah.
Especially like if you've just gone through our free course, which separates the 6 types of questions that an interviewer can ask you, it will be pretty clear to you if you take just a little bit of notes when you're preparing what is hardest to you.
Right.
And then you can work a lot on that. But at some point, after doing this a couple of times, it's going to be less and less clear.
Yeah.
And at that point, I think that it's worth it trying new methods if you're now having trouble diagnosing your own issue. And I think a coach will have a lot of value, a good coach, versus a mock interview partner or yourself.
Yeah, I agree. When you're starting out, if you have like 10 cases under your belt, and these are reference points, right?
Yeah.
So you can have 10 cases and be great if you've done other stuff as well. But let's say to the average candidate, if you have 10, 15 cases under your belt, you can very reliably self-diagnose your major bottleneck.
Yeah.
So you go through our free course. There are 6 types of questions. You intuitively know which question are you weakest at because of the cases you've done. You know where you fail, and each type of question has 3, 4, 5 steps.
Yeah,
you probably know which of the steps is the major hurdle for you. Once you get more experienced and the obvious stuff is out of the way, then I agree that it's very valuable. And I think they can add value in 3 ways, a good coach for this candidate. One is to tell you how far from the bar are you. So are you very likely to pass to the next round and get the offer? Are you 70% likely? Are you half and half, 50%? Are you probably not going to pass? Because they can say that as well. Are you surely not going to pass? That's one other answer. So that's one thing. They can give you a gauge of how good you are. The second thing that I think they can add value to you is by showing you blind spots. So things you thought you were great at or good at, and that you're actually not.
Okay.
Right? So maybe you think you're good at structuring brainstorming questions. But when you get down to it, you actually don't structure, or you just use poor structures, or you ramble too much. So they can show you some blind spots. And I think the third thing that can help you a lot here is by, let's say you make math mistakes in analysis questions all the time.
Yeah.
Often, there are some patterns to it. And they may help you notice those patterns. So one pattern that you may or may not notice by yourself is you always make the mistake in the number of zeros.
Yeah.
Right? So they may help point that out to you. That's not so hard to do on your own, but I've seen candidates not noticing that.
Yeah.
Another one that's more tricky is, hey, have you noticed that the specific way that you structure these equations make you confused later on? For example, because you don't write down the variables in a precise way. And so when you're 3 minutes into the question, you go back into your equations, your step-by-step structure to solve this analysis, you forget what the variable actually meant. And then when you do the math, it doesn't make sense anymore. So they can point out these very specific things and give you very specific solutions to that. For example, whenever you have variables in your structure, write them down fully instead of abbreviating them, trusting yourself that you remember what that meant.
Yeah.
So I think this is another use case. And for this type of coach, I think you need someone more experienced.
Yeah.
Especially with coaching. Someone who has results, has gotten offers to people. One one good question to ask this type of coach is, have you ever had a candidate who was rejected before and who has gotten offers after working with you?
Yeah.
And if so, what specifically did you do to help them get the offer? And the type of answer that you're expecting from a good coach is, oh, yes, I had this client once. He didn't pass because of this feedback. When I started working with him or with her, what I actually noticed is that this broad feedback that the firm gave was actually this specific thing. Because sometimes firms will say, oh, your business sense is not good. But
yeah, they're never going to give you specific feedback.
Yeah. So I got this feedback. It was actually this specific thing. And there was this unrelated thing that was blocking my clients to do this well. So we unlocked this. I taught him how to do this through this technique or using this method or using this type of practice.
Right. So you wanna see them break down their client's problem into a very specific sub-skill that they were doing wrong.
Yeah. You want them to show that they can diagnose something and then give a good treatment. So kind of like how a doctor thinks.
Yeah.
Right? Or how a consultant thinks, right?
Yeah.
So you want them to think like a consultant through their preparation.
Yeah.
And anything to add on this one?
To me, it's clear that this is the highest value to cost. You should probably hire the most expensive coach for diagnosing bottlenecks. Or like this is where it would be okay to hire
the most you can afford.
Yeah, the most you can afford, and look less at the cost than you would at the other scenarios.
Also because you only need a couple sessions.
Exactly, precisely.
Even one.
So you only need one or maybe two, probably only one, and it's a lot of value because you'll get out of the session with a lot of stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is my opinion in this one.
Yeah, or maybe a little bit to do. We had this client once, and she said that she always made math mistakes, and I mean arithmetic mistakes, since high school or middle school or something like that. And she kept doing those mistakes in the case, and she was lucky because her problem was easy to fix, at least for us. I gave her 2 techniques. I had her practice for like 15 minutes in the session. Couple days later, she told me she got the offer at McKinsey. She didn't make any math mistakes for the first time in her life.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say that's the usual thing because some stuff take more time to fix. But yeah, sometimes you'll have a lot of stuff to do. Sometimes it's just a small thing that's easy to fix in the right hands.
Yeah.
And that unlocks everything else.
Yeah.
Right?
What I would say is only hire a coach for diagnostics if you've tried to diagnose yourself before.
Oh, yeah.
Because sometimes you're going to find your problem. Like I said in the beginning, it's easy. And sometimes you won't, but at least you have a starting ground to discuss your coach's opinion and sometimes even improve in it.
Yeah, if you do our free course, for instance, map out how you perform in each of the steps of each of the 6 building blocks and bring that to your coach. Hey, I think I'm great at this, this, and this. I think I'm bad at the so what part of the analysis question. I think I'm bad at the mapping the chart part of interpreting charts and reading the footnotes and mapping out the variables. And I think I could improve in the methods to test hypothesis. And these are just examples, but if you bring this much detail to your coach, they can probably help you a lot more. A good coach will still test everything, because they can't really trust your judgment as a candidate. But I agree with you. It's more bang for your buck if you've done the work before.
Yeah.
Right, and it's also how you learn. Right, you can't have someone mentally upload something to you.
Yeah.